What's going on, Bears Nation? And welcome back to Bears News Fan Report, your ultimate destination for breaking news, exclusive rumors, and in-depth analysis on our beloved Chicago Bears. Before we dive into today's story, I need you to buckle up, because what I'm about to share with you involves a potential game changer that could significantly impact our defensive future. This isn't just another game preview or injury update. We're talking about a strategic move that could be brewing behind the scenes as we approach the trade deadline, and it involves a first-round defensive talent who's been underutilized and might be exactly what Ryan Poles is looking for to bolster our pass rush. Here's the situation unfolding right now. The Bears are sitting at 4-3 after having their 4-game winning streak snapped by the Baltimore Ravens last week. We're still very much in the playoff hunt, but that loss exposed some vulnerabilities, particularly when it comes to generating consistent pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Meanwhile, across the league, there's a team in a similar position, fighting to keep their postseason hopes alive, despite dealing with injuries and inconsistent performances. That team happens to have a young defensive asset who was drafted in the first round with sky-high expectations, but hasn't quite found his footing yet. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably running through potential trade targets in your mind, wondering which pass rusher could be available and whether the Bears had the assets to make a move. Well, let me paint you a picture of what's been circulating in NFL circles over the past few days. Multiple sources have indicated that Ryan Poles and the Bears front office are actively exploring options to upgrade the defensive line before next week's trade deadline. They're looking for someone young, someone with untapped potential, someone who could develop into a cornerstone piece under the guidance of our coaching staff. The player I'm talking about was selected with high expectations, viewed as a potential difference maker who could anchor a defensive line for years to come. He has the physical tools, the athleticism, the raw talent that scouts drool over. But for various reasons, whether it's scheme fit, coaching decisions, or simply being buried on the depth chart, he hasn't been able to showcase what he can really do at the NFL level. And when a first-round pick isn't producing, that's when opportunities arise for teams like the Bears to swoop in and acquire talent at a potentially discounted price. So who exactly am I talking about? Well, this Sunday, the Bears will be facing the Cincinnati Bengals, and there's one particular player on their roster who fits this profile perfectly. Before I reveal his name, let me give you some context about why this potential move makes so much sense for Chicago. Our pass rush has been inconsistent all season long. While we've had moments of brilliance, we've also had games where we simply couldn't get to the quarterback consistently enough. Montez Sweat has been solid, but he needs help on the other side. We need another young, athletic edge rusher who can develop alongside our core and become a long-term solution. The Bengals are in an interesting position right now. They're 3-5 and fighting to stay relevant in a weak AFC North. They've dealt with significant injuries, including losing Joe Burrow early in the season, though Joe Flacco has provided a surprising spark since taking over. But here's the key detail. Their defense has struggled mightily this year, and despite investing high draft capital in certain positions, they haven't gotten the return they expected. When teams are hovering around .500 and facing the possibility of missing the playoffs, that's when front offices start making tough decisions about which assets to hold and which ones to move. Enter Sheimar Stewart, the Bengals' first-round pick, who has been virtually invisible this season. Now, before you dismiss this as just another underperforming rookie, hear me out on why Stewart could be exactly what the Bears need and why a trade might actually make sense for both sides. Stewart came out of Texas A&M with elite measurables and the kind of physical profile that NFL teams covet for their defensive line. He's got the size, the speed, the power to be a legitimate force off the edge. The problem is, he simply hasn't gotten the opportunity to prove it in Cincinnati. Here's the eye-opening stat that tells you everything you need to know about Stewart's usage. He's produced fewer tackles this season than Sheimar. Yes, you read that right. A first-round defensive lineman has fewer tackles than a wide receiver. That's not because Stewart lacks talent. It's because he's barely seeing the field. When a high draft pick isn't getting playing time, it usually means one of two things. Either there's a serious concern about his ability, or there's a disconnect between the player and the coaching staff's scheme or expectations. From everything I've been hearing, it's more the latter than the former with Stewart. The Bengals have Trey Hendrickson as their star edge rusher, and they've invested heavily in other defensive line positions. Stewart has essentially been buried on the depth chart, unable to carve out a significant role despite being a recent first-round investment. This is where opportunity meets necessity for a team like the Bears. We have a proven track record under Matt Eberflus of developing defensive talent, particularly in the secondary and along the defensive line. Stewart could be a classic change of scenery candidate who thrives once he's given a real opportunity. Now, let me speculate on what a potential trade might look like and why it could benefit both organizations. The Bengals are clearly in win-now mode with their current roster, even despite the injuries. If they believe they can still make a playoff push, they might be more interested in acquiring immediate help rather than holding on to a developmental player who isn't contributing. The Bears, on the other hand, are building for both the present and the future. We're competitive now, but we're also thinking long-term about constructing a championship roster around Caleb Williams. A trade package for Stewart wouldn't require giving up a king's ransom. We're probably talking about a mid-round pick, maybe a 4th or 5th rounder, possibly with some conditions attached based on playing time or performance. That's the kind of low-risk, high-reward move that Ryan Poles has shown he's willing to make. Remember, this is the same front office that brought in players like Montez Sweat and has consistently found value in the trade market. Adding a young, athletic edge rusher with first-round pedigree for a relatively modest price would be a shrewd move that could pay dividends for years to come. Let's talk about the fit from a schematic standpoint. Matt Eberflus runs a defensive system that values versatility and athleticism along the defensive line. Stewart's skill set would mesh well with what we're trying to do defensively. He could rotate in as a situational pass rusher initially, learning from veterans like Sweat and getting acclimated to our system without the pressure of being an every-down player immediately. As he develops and gains confidence, his role could expand, potentially turning him into the long-term answer opposite Sweat that we've been searching for. There's also the psychological aspect to consider. Sometimes a player just needs a fresh start, a new environment where the expectations are different and the opportunity is real. Stewart knows he was drafted to be an impact player. He knows he has the talent. But sitting on the bench game after game, watching from the sidelines while barely getting on the field, that can be demoralizing for any competitor. Coming to Chicago, joining a defense that's shown it can develop talent, playing for a coaching staff that believes in him, that could be exactly what unlocks his potential. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room. Some of you might be thinking, if Stewart is so talented, why haven't the Bengals figured out how to use him? That's a fair question, and the honest answer is that sometimes it just doesn't work out with the team that drafts you. We've seen countless examples throughout NFL history of players who struggle with their original team only to thrive elsewhere. Scheme fit matters, coaching matters, opportunity matters. All these factors play a role in a player's development, and sometimes a change is necessary for that development to take the next step. Looking at this Sunday's matchup specifically, it will be fascinating to see how Stewart is utilized against our offensive line. If Trey Hendrickson is unable to play due to his hip injury, the Bengals will be desperate for someone to step up and generate pressure. This could be Stewart's opportunity to finally show what he can do, and ironically, he might be auditioning for the Bears as much as he's trying to help the Bengals win. Our left tackle situation with Theo Benedette has been up and down, and if Stewart can make some plays, it might actually strengthen the case for the Bears to pursue him, knowing he has that kind of upside. But here's where I really get excited about the possibility of this move. Imagine a defensive line rotation next season that includes Montez Sweat, Sheimar Stewart, and whatever other pieces we add through the draft and free agency. We'd have a young, athletic, hungry group that could develop together and become one of the more formidable pass rushing units in the NFC. That's the kind of foundation you build a championship defense around. That's the kind of move that looks brilliant 3 years from now when Stewart is racking up double-digit sacks and people are wondering how the Bengals ever let him go. I want to be clear about something. I don't have insider confirmation that a trade is imminent or even that formal discussions have taken place. What I do have is knowledge of the Bears' needs, awareness of Stewart's situation in Cincinnati, and understanding of how NFL front offices operate when the trade deadline approaches. This is the kind of move that makes too much sense not to at least explore. If I'm Ryan Poles, I'm absolutely making a phone call to Cincinnati to gauge their interest in moving Stewart. The worst they can say is no, and the upside if they say yes could be tremendous as we head into Sunday's game against the Bengals. I'll be watching Stewart closely, and I encourage all of you to do the same. Watch how he's used, watch his effort, watch whether he flashes that first-round talent when he does get on the field. Because if the Bears are seriously considering making a move, you can bet they'll be evaluating every snap he plays. This game could serve as a live audition, and that adds an extra layer of intrigue to what's already an important matchup for our playoff hopes. Bears Nation. I want to hear from you on this. Do you think the Bears should pursue Sheimar Stewart before the trade deadline? Would you be willing to give up a mid-round pick for a first-round talent who hasn't panned out yet but still has tremendous upside? Or do you think we should stick with what we have and address the pass rush through the draft? What kind of package would you be comfortable offering Cincinnati? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I genuinely want to know how you feel about this potential move. This is exactly the kind of strategic decision that could define Ryan Poles' tenure as general manager. Making smart, calculated moves to acquire young talent at reasonable prices is how you build sustainable success in the NFL. Stewart represents the type of buy low opportunity that could pay massive dividends if it works out. And even if it doesn't, the investment will be minimal enough that it wouldn't set us back significantly. That's the kind of risk-reward calculation that winning organizations make all the time. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a potential trade scenario, if you appreciate getting this level of analysis and speculation before it hits mainstream media, then I need you to do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to Bears News Fan Report if you haven't already, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an update. We're here every single day bringing you the latest news, the most informed analysis, and the insider perspective you won't find anywhere else. This is your community for everything Bears, and I'm grateful to have you here as part of the family. Share this video with your fellow Bears fans. Get the conversation started about whether we should go after Stewart, and let's see if Ryan Poles is thinking the same thing we are. The trade deadline is approaching fast, and if something happens, you'll hear about it here first. Until then, bear down, and let's go get this win on Sunday.